I love living in Denver, but there are more than a few things that the internet didn't tell me before I moved here many years ago. Man, time goes by really fast. Some things are really easy to find, like altitude, cost of living, and the fact that we have a lot of beer. And then there are those things that you just don't know about a city until you live here, and that's what we're going to cover in this video. Of course, if you live here in Denver and you're just watching this for fun, feel free to add your local knowledge to the comments because we've all got some. Let's do this. If you live in Colorado, your car's windshield is going to crack a lot. By now, I actually expect my car's windshield to crack about every other year. And why does this happen? It's because of the sand-salt aggregate mix that the Colorado Department of Transportation uses mostly in the wintertime. Compared to many other states, the mix that we use here in Colorado can have bigger chunks that are up to 1/4 inch in size, which is not a tiny pebble. When that comes flying at your windshield on the freeway, it becomes a tiny crack that gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you feel like shelling out $400 for a new windshield again. Some people say that we use a lower quality sand mix and it's probably cheaper for the state, but the reason why our mix is a little bit chunkier is because if it was super fine, it would wash off mountain roads really quickly and potentially clog rivers. Cracked windshields are bad, but clogged rivers are probably worse. Also, because the sand is a little bit more coarse, it's easier for trucks to sweep up after snowstorms, and they turn it into something like those sound barriers that you see on the side of the freeway. In another video, I mentioned how Denver has more dogs than kids, and we have 3 dogs and 2 kids, so that tracks. But the thing that I didn't know is how many coyotes and foxes hang out in neighborhoods here. There's also an occasional mountain lion or bear, especially in the mountains, but that's not an everyday thing. Our 3 dogs are pretty small, basically making them light snacks for coyotes, and you will hear baby coyotes yipping all night long throughout the year. Of course, in the mountains and suburbs, you'll have a little bit more wildlife activity, so depending on where you live, this might be really normal to you, but this was news to me. There are crazy coyote stories on Nextdoor all the time. A lot of people in Colorado have big dogs, so it's less of an issue for them, but if you're small dog people like we are, it's crazy. I also didn't realize that there are multiple huge and oddly shaped cities around Denver that make it extremely difficult to know where someone actually lives. Like, let's look at Aurora, which basically goes all the way northeast to the airport and goes south past multiple suburbs into its own suburban area with huge houses that feels completely different. It can feel very much like Denver in the area now known as Central Park, formerly Stapleton, and it can also feel very suburban by the Southlands Mall. On the west side, you've got Lakewood, which can be very west like Golden, and it can actually be pretty close to downtown Denver. And don't even get me started on Centennial, which is one of the weirdest shaped cities that I've ever seen. Because of that shape, someone could be west, someone could be east. Really, all you know is that they're south of Denver. If you know of a weirder shaped city, add it to the comments because I want to see it. This is a big reason why people often say the city that they live in immediately followed up by something that they're close to, because you could really be off by 20 miles. When a lot of people think about Denver, they think about snow, and they think that we're like this mountainous region that's covered in snow all the time, but summer here is actually awesome. While the East Coast and the South sweat it out with humidity, our dry heat is great. Because we all know that spring and fall last about 3 weeks here, people also really get outside and take advantage of summer. Whether people go stand up paddleboarding in Evergreen or another place, hit up a farmer's market, go to an outdoor concert or festival, I love summer in Denver. Also, our winters are really not that bad because the snow is so dry and the sun is so bright that the snow melts really fast. One important thing to know is that because of our elevation, the sun is about 20% brighter here, which results in a lot of unexpected sunburns for tourists, and hopefully you realize that the first time it happens. But it's not all good. The weather here can be pretty stressful because we get a lot of the extremes. We're right next to a lot of other states that get comparably crazy weather in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. From thunder snow to golf ball sized hail that destroys roofs, totals cars, and breaks windows, to bomb cyclones, which is pretty much like a snowstorm and hurricane at the same time, we get it all here. A 70-degree temperature swing in 24 hours is something that can and does happen, and those hailstorms that total cars, legit, happens all the time. For me, after seeing our barbecue and smoker go flying off our patio multiple times, the crazy wind is my least favorite, but there's all kinds of weather here. You can just be sitting inside, minding your business, having a great day, and suddenly there's like a biblical lightning storm with thunder and crazy wind and hail flying horizontally at your windows. It happens all the time. If you've lived your whole life never replacing a roof or having a window be cracked by weather, Denver will change that really quick. Also, I wanted to bring up an elephant in the room. A lot of people in internet comments talk about crime and homelessness in Denver, so let's talk about it. First, I think a good amount of people who make those comments don't live in Denver. They live in like Colorado Springs, and it definitely has gotten worse, especially in the past couple years. Statistically, that's a fact, but I do think that it's important to remember the context of where you're coming from. We have the highest vehicle theft rate in the United States by a pretty large margin. There are homeless people at nearly every freeway entrance in and around the city, and crime has gone up. Those are facts. But if you just went off YouTube comments, you would think that Denver was like Skid Row in LA, the Tenderloin in San Francisco, or parts of Portland. It's not that. I used to volunteer a lot on Skid Row in LA, and I was recently on a work trip that somehow we were staying in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. Those areas can literally look like the scary parts of a Batman movie. That's not Denver. And yes, crime absolutely does happen, but on the internet, there's a lot of people who live in like rural areas who rarely go to the city, or they live in the Springs or the suburbs, and they say that Denver is crime central. And as someone who has lived in big cities my whole life, I still think Denver feels pretty safe for a city. And just like other cities, if you go by the Mission, there's going to be a bunch of people doing drugs, homeless people, and tents all over the place. But Denver has so many family-friendly areas to walk around. Our parks are really beautiful. We have a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old. We take them all over the place, and we're good. If you're going down a YouTube rabbit hole right now watching a bunch of videos about Denver, these videos will help you know what it's really like to live here, and I'll catch you over there.